Hello everyone, this is Preeti here. I hope you're all doing well. Our today's topic is management theories and approaches. Under this, we are going to see behavioral management theory or neoclassical or new classical theory. Coming to the presentation outline, where we're going to see the introduction to behavioral management theory or neoclassical theory, the differences between the classical management theory, where we have studied about scientific management theory, administrative management theory, and bureaucratic management theory, versus neo or new classical management theory, and the types of behavioral theory such as human relations theory and behavioral science theory. And here in this video, we are going to see the introduction and explanation of human relations theory in detail, which was given by Elton Mayo. And we are going to discuss about the overall conclusions and criticism of this Hawthorne experiment, which was given by Elton Mayo, some of the examples of behavioral management theories in real business. An interesting fact for today is cheaper by the dozen, which means saving time improves lives, by Frank Gilbert. Coming to the introduction to behavioral management theory and neoclassical theory. The behavioral or neoclassical theory is just the extended version of a classical theory which we have already studied, where classical theory there is no importance to the human elements, but here in the neoclassical theory the human relations and behavioral sciences were discussed. According to this theory, the organization is a social system and its performance does get affected by the human actions, which means that organization is a social system where the humans are not just machines, humans are the individuals who have their own feelings, sentiments, or emotions. The neoclassical approach recognizes the primacy of psychological and social aspects of the workers as an individual or in groups. The behavioral approach has largely shaped today's contemporary organizations, and some of the elements of behavioral management theories are discussed here. That is, the individual behavior, the individual in working groups, the participative management of an employee, orientation, motivation of the employees, leadership skills of the employees, and employee development, that is career development of the employees. So these were the elements going to be discussed in the behavioral approach. Before going to see in detail about the behavioral management theory, let's see what are the limitations in classical theory and how it is overcome in the neoclassical theory. So according to the definition, the classical theory only considers the physical and economic needs of the employees, whereas the neo or the new classical theory, it not only considers the physical and economic needs, but also ensures that there is a job satisfaction for the employees and a career development in the organization. Coming to the structure, the classical theory has impersonal and mechanical structure where there is going to be routine jobs and there is no personal relationship between the employees. Whereas in the neoclassical theory, it is a social system where the humans are the individuals who have their own sentiments, feelings, and emotions. The classical theory emphasizes or giving importance to order and rationality, whereas the new or new classical theory gives importance to personal, security, and social requirements of the workers while obtaining the objectives of the organization. Coming to the application of classical theory, it is applicable to authoritarian practices where they follow strict rules and regulations to achieve the results, whereas the neoclassical theory is applicable to democratic practices where the involvement of employees in decision making takes place and identifies the importance of human dignity and values in the organization. And the result of the classical theory is that it results in work disalignment and dissatisfaction of the employees in the organization, though it improves the productivity in the organization. The result of the neoclassical theory is that it just provides the happiness and satisfied employees which are trying to improve the productivity in the organization. So these were the differences between the classical theory and neoclassical theory. The limitations of classical theory is overcome by the behavioral theory. Coming to the types of behavioral theory or neoclassical theory, where there are two approaches of behavioral management theory, namely human relations theory and behavioral science theory. The human relations theory considers the organization as a social system where the feelings, sentiments, and emotions of the employees were given much importance. Coming to the behavioral science theory, it just considers organization as a socio-technical system where it gives importance to the use of scientific procedures to study the psychological, social, and the anthropological aspects of human behavior in the organization. In this video, we are going to see the introduction to human relations theory. So in simple words, we can say that human relations theory insists that the employees will perform more efficiently simply by giving some more attention to them. The human relations theory was developed by Elton Mayo and his associates from the year 1924 to 1932 at the Hawthorne plant of Western Electric Company, where they did the research on the behavior of people in groups, how it affects the individuals in the workplace, which is known as the Hawthorne studies. We know that in classical theory, where there is application of science, managerial functions, and organizational structure improves the productivity. but they considered humans as machines that would work in unethical or unrealistic environments. Whereas Elton Mayo, in contrast, popularized the idea of the social person, where the organization should treat people as individuals and not just like machines. So, the human relations theory insists to give special attention to the employees, are encouraged to participate, and are motivated to be more productive, resulting in high quality of work. So, giving special attention to the employees improves the productivity neither by forcing nor by rules or regulations. Coming to Hawthorne studies, which was given by Elton Mayo and Rosette Lisberger. The four phases of Hawthorne effect by Elton Mayo and Rosette Lisberger are: first one is the elimination experiment, where they did this experiment using the different intensity of light. Second is the relay assembly test, where the employees work in telephone relays. Third is the mass interviewing programs, where many number of employees are interviewed based on their job satisfaction, their working nature, their mindset, etc. Fourth one is a bank wiring observation room experiment, which shows that the employees behave differently in groups. So we are going to see all those experiments one by one. So first is the elimination experiment, which took place between 1924 to 1927. The main aim of elimination experiment is that to determine the effect of different levels of elimination on workers' productivity. So the experiment took place in such a way where the employees are divided into two groups, namely experimental groups and control groups. The control groups has constant intensity of elimination of light without any changes, whereas the experimental group works under varying intensity of light elimination. And the conclusion made here is that it was concluded that the elimination did not have any effect on productivity, but something else was interfering with the productivity. The second experiment is the relay assembly test room experiment, which took place in 1927. The main aim of this experiment is to observe the effect of various changes in the working conditions on the worker's output and morale. So if the working condition changes, it improves the productivity. Let's see how. The experiment says that two girls were chosen, and these girls were asked to choose for more girls as co-workers, and the work is related to the assembly of telephone relays. An observer or supervisor was associated to supervise and given opportunity to girls in taking decisions on matters concerning them. Also, for every changes, they consult the employees and get their own ideas. The conclusion of this experiment says that whenever the incentive system was changed, the productivity was increased. Whenever a 2-minute rest were increased to 10 minutes, along with the refreshments, the productivity was increased. When there is a change in the working hours, such as cutting an hour off the end of the day and eliminating the Saturday work, the productivity has increased. As each change was introduced, the absenteeism of the employees were decreased, the morale of the employees were increased, and the less supervision for the employees was required. This means that they developed the sense of self-responsibility and self-discipline. The third experiment is mass interviewing program, which took place between 1928 to 31. The main aim of this experiment to explore the employees' feelings, that is, employees' attitudes and sentiments towards the organization by talking to them. The experiment says that initially the experiments were conducted based on a questionnaire where there is an interviewer and the employee, and they took 20,000 employees for this test. It is not worked out because for each question there is only yes or no and there is no explanation. So they went for non-directive interviewing method, which was followed where the interviewer was asked to listen to instead of talking, arguing or advising. It gives valuable insights about the human behavior in the company. And the conclusion of this experiment was that the workers' behavior was being influenced by the group behavior. This helped to determine the employees' attitudes towards the company, the supervision, the insurance plans that organization supports, the promotions and the wages. Fourth experiment is a bank wiring experiment, which took place between 1931 to 32. The main aim of the experiment is to understand better how the norms, that is rules or regulations that controlled each member's output, that is each member's productivity, were established by the workers' social group, that is informal organization. The experiment was conducted in such a way where there is a group of 14 male workers in the bank wiring room were placed under observation for 6 months, and the workers' pay depends on the performance of the group as a whole and not on the individual productivity. The conclusion was made such that the output and the productivity was low than what the company has determined, because the employees felt that there is a fear of unemployment, there is a fear of raising the standards and the protection of slower workers. This says that the informal social groups set their own output standards rather than the production standards of the organization. So the overall conclusions of the Hawthorne experiment and its criticism are explained here. The conclusions of the Hawthorne experiment are: first is organization is a social unit and there is a group influence among the employees. The group behavior of the individual employees are measured. Motivation of the employees is done. Supervision takes place where less supervision is required if the employees are self-disciplined. Whenever there is a change in the working conditions for the betterment of the employees, the productivity has increased. The employee model, that is self-responsibility of the employee, increases the productivity. This behavioral theory improves the good communication between the supervisors and the employees, and there is a balanced approach of the employees. The criticisms of the Hawthorne experiment are: first, it lacks validity. It gives more importance to the human aspects. Third, more emphasis or importance is given to group decision making, which is quite difficult in large organizations. And fourth, overimportance is given to the freedom of workers. So these were the overall conclusions and criticisms that are made after the Hawthorne experiment. The examples of companies implementing the behavioral management theories are given here. The factors included in the management or the organization giving importance to behavioral management theory are as follows. First comes the daycare. So some organizations have their own daycare centers for their employees' needs. So this gives the employees job satisfaction. The companies are Unilever, Johnson & Johnson, EY, that is Ernst & Young, Bank of America, Deloitte, IBM, etc. These companies either gives the maternity and paternity leave for the employees, or they give the compensation for the medical expenses, or they gives the compensation for the daycare. Second one is the employee suggestion box, where they consider employees' ideas which are valuable to the company. Even the Government of India and the Ministry of Labour and Employment ask the companies to have an employee suggestion box, and some other companies are Canon, Toyota, Bell, Siemens, Tata Motors, etc. Third one is a flex time scheduling, where the employees can work 8 or 9 hours a day according to their own flexible timings. So this means that they respect the employees' individual needs. Most of the IT companies now are adapting to this flex time scheduling, where they can work from home or they can work according to their own time. Fourth one is a positive reinforcement, where they reward the employees for their excellent work. The good examples are IT companies gives bonus to their employees if they did a good job, and the government organization give bonus to their government employees during Diwali or New Year. So these were some of the examples of companies where they implement the behavioral management theories. Coming to the interesting fact for today, which is cheaper by the dozen. It's one of the autobiographical book which was written by Frank's son. Frank Gilbert was the person who found the motion theory or the movement theory in scientific management theory under classical school. So Frank is actually where the title of this talk comes from. Cheaper by the dozen is an autobiographical book written by Frank's son about the life and the method of his parents. So the book title comes from the fact that there are 12 kids in their family and often receive the attention in public for being such a large family. Frank Gilbert was obsessed with the idea of saving the steps, saving the motion, and saving the time. He had break down the process into motions and determined how they could be improved to speed the entire process up and complete the work more faster and more efficiently. So during the World War I, he just turned his attention to the medical field by helping the doctors reducing the movements during surgery so that it could save hundreds and thousands of lives. He also found that this motion study saved a tremendous amount of time during the life and death surgeries. He also extended his motion study in organizations for effective completion of work in less time by reducing the unnecessary movements. So according to him, cheaper by the dozen. So either you raise a kid, either you raise 12 kids, that will be cheaper. So saving time always improves lives. He saved time by reducing the steps or saving the motion or movements, even in the organizations, to improve the efficiency and the productivity in the organization. There is also a movie under Cheaper by Dozen 1 and Cheaper by Dozen 2, which is in the Hotstar. If you wish to watch it, please go and watch it. I hope you like this video. For more videos, please subscribe to this channel UGC Net MBA Aspirants, and please post your comments below. Thank you.